everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome for the first time. My name is Cheryl, and today I'm here to bring you the review for the Welcome to Night Vale novel by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor. Alright, so if you don't already know, Welcome to Night Vale is a podcast that was created, I don't even know, years and years ago. I know they just reached their 100th episode mark. But basically, it is a podcast narrated by Cecil, who is the radio host for the town of Night Vale, and basically he just tells you about the daily happenings in town. But this town is not like normal towns. Really weird stuff happens there, and they just act like it is just perfectly normal. It's really kind of hard to explain. Honestly, you just kind of have to listen to it to understand what I'm talking about. So if you have listened to it before, then you would know that it's just a really weird town. So basically this book just takes place in the town and follows the adventures of two characters. So I actually listened to this via audiobook, and honestly that was the best possible choice, I think, because this book was narrated by Cecil Baldwin, who narrates the actual podcast itself. So I was very familiar with his voice. I was very familiar with the way he narrates, and honestly it just sucked me right back into the story. I feel like if I had read the book I would have given it a lower rating, and I'll kind of get to that in a moment as to why, but because it was narrated by the podcast narrator, I was just in it. I was there for it. So I finally have found an audiobook that I think worked for me. I actually gave this one a full 5 out of 5 stars. So like most of my reviews, this will be spoiler free. So let me just get into a general synopsis of it. Like I said, it is a dual perspective novel that follows two characters. It follows Diane, who is a PTA member and a mother of Josh, who can change his form at will. And basically her story is that she's really confused because everyone around her keeps denying facts, especially the existence of a certain person. She's like, I remember this person, and everyone around her is like, you're just going crazy, sorry. And so she's trying to get to the bottom of that mystery, as well as dealing with her son, who's going through normal teenage angst. It also follows Jackie, who's a perpetual 19-year-old that runs the local pawn shop. She was visited by the man in the tan jacket who carries a deerskin suitcase, and he gave her a note at the pawn shop, or pawned a note at her shop, that just simply says King City, and then she found that she could not get rid of it. I literally, like, every time she destroyed it, threw it down, it appeared unharmed in the way it originally was in her hand. And so basically she goes on a journey trying to figure out why this is the case, and her story and Diane's story end up intertwining. I really do think that you can enjoy this book if you have not listened to the original podcast, although the original podcast does help. They reference a lot of the stuff that you hear in the original podcasts, without going into too much detail, but they give enough detail about it that if you haven't listened, I still think you can follow along and kind of understand what's happening, as long as you understand that, like I said, this is a very weird town. Things don't make sense. For example, writing utensils are outlawed and the existence of mountains are heavily denied. So if you understand that that's the kind of humor and that's the kind of weirdness in the town, I think you can go ahead and understand the book and still enjoy it without listening to the podcast. So just kind of a general pro-con list, like I do with all of my spoiler-free reviews. The pros of this book include the fact that it expanded on the world and characters. I haven't really listened to the podcast in a while, so I don't know if they have already been expanded on, but for me, having listened to about half of the podcasts and now reading the book, I found that some of these characters who were briefly mentioned were expanded upon. I got to learn more about them and about their personalities. You get to learn more about the world. You get to learn more about the town. Another pro is that it's quirky and like the original, and I think that helped that I listened to the audiobook for it, because it felt like I was just listening to another one of their podcasts. I could get right back into it without any issues. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Another pro is that it is absolutely full of diversity. Cecil is in a long-standing relationship with Carlos. They have been together since fairly early on in the podcast. Also, being gay is just super casually thrown out there. There's also diversity when it comes to races in this, but that is explained more so in the podcast than in the book itself. A lot of the characters aren't necessarily given that many descriptions. You just kind of know about them from the podcast as opposed to from the novel. The only con I have with this book, and it wasn't even a big enough one to duck at any stars, like I said, I did give it a full 5 stars, but that con is the fact that the plot itself was actually fairly slow. It didn't really pick up until the last third of the book, and if I didn't love the story so much, and if I didn't love the way that Cecil narrated so much, I feel like it would have dropped the rating for me. I think the book overall has a 3.88 on Goodreads, and I can see why it's not any higher. I feel like if I had read the book, I honestly probably would have given it a lower rating, but because I love Cecil's narration, it helped immerse me in the story more. But like I said, I feel like honestly the plot was just really slow and drawn out. I would highly recommend the audiobook, but I would also recommend just picking up this book in general if you haven't already and if this sounds interesting to you. But anyway, that's my spoiler-free review for Welcome to Night Vale, the novel by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!